Hi, I'm Di with Sister Chicks Quilting, and welcome to my channel today. You know, I get a lot of emails and I've got a lot of comments from quilters, and they're brand new quilters or it's their first quilter. I know there's a ton of us out there that are experienced, but today this video is going to focus on beginning quilting or the first time quilter. And I have a really fun color lesson for those of us that are a little more experienced or that want to give it a try. I'm going to start with the top 3 tips and or tools that you're going to need to quilt. Basically, to quilt, the first thing you're going to need, and you know what? Fabric isn't one of them because there's so much of it out there, and don't we love it all? It's just gorgeous. It calls to me. The fabric just says, buy me when I walk by it. It's a bad disease to have. But the first thing you're going to need when you quilt, you want to be accurate. So you're going to want to have a good way to get your blocks accurately cut. That means you're going to need a good cutting mat, a rotary cutter, and a good ruler. Don't be afraid of them. They can be your best friend in making your blocks accurately. And it is important to cut accurately because I've made it. I've done this when I have not cut accurately, and I'll have one block a different size, or the quilt is bigger, or whatever. You need to be, if you cut accurately, then you're going to have an accurate, nice quilt, and you'll be happier with it. Oh, and guess what? It will be easier to sew. All right. The second thing that's important in quilting is seam allowance. Now, when I first started quilting, I was reading a pattern. I'm like, what is this 1/4 inch crap? The quilting seam allowance is a standard 1/4 inch, and that seam allowance is the part. Here's the fabric. This would be a seam, and this would be the allowance on the inside, and this would be the quilt top. So in quilting, we quilt at a 1/4 inch, and it's important to be accurate with that as well. How do you do that? I bought a 1/4 inch pressing foot for my sewing machine. They are out there. You can get a 1/4 inch just about anywhere. And the first machine I ever had with a 1/4 inch foot had a little bar on the side of it, and I just butted my fabric right up to that and sewed along. It was really neat. Another way that you can get a 1/4 inch is by measuring it on your sewing machine. Use a gauge. I use this little measuring gauge, and do you see right here is the 1/4 inch? So that's a 1/4 inch. I also, sometimes I have a foot, sometimes I don't, but I have this 1/4 inch seam tape. I love it. It's washi tape, so it doesn't leave a residue on your machine, but you can mark, look at the little markings on it. The blue and the red, they're all a 1/4 inch apart, and I even have a bunch of thread on it. But you can put this on your machine, mark it using a gauge or a ruler from your needle out to this, and get a 1/4 inch seam. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is pressing your seams. Pressing makes everything look so much nicer, and it lays it flat. When you press with your iron, I'll just grab mine real quick, you want to press. You don't want to slide. You don't want to slide and push that iron because you're going to stretch your fabric out. And again, you won't be accurate. So those are the 3, I think, most important beginner sewing tips. For a lot of us, we just know it. For those of you who don't, pay attention to those 3. You'll be happier. Okay, why am I standing with my fabric? See back here. These are 1/2 yard or larger pieces. I'm going to make an easy first-time beginner quilt. And the easiest way to do this is with a patchwork quilt. And I wanted to sew from my stash and not buy fabric that's put together. That's the lesson we're going to do. I'm actually going to pull fabric. So this is how you start with pulling fabric. You start with a focus piece, and this is my focus piece. What do you think? It's an art gallery piece, but look at the colors in there. The background is this navy blue. Do you see the aqua and kind of this yellow ochre or mustard yellow and this persimmon and a pink? So to me, those colors really stand out. And I'm actually going to take this to my fabric, and I'm going to pull some fabric and let you help me decide if it's going to work or not. Here we go. All right, this may be hard for you to see, but this is how I do. I just take my fabric, and there's a pink, and I lay it up against my pinks. These are all too light, too much color. Oh, I'm seeing this one is too garish and bright, I think. I'm seeing these two pinks right here stand out a little bit. Oh, let me see what we have. Okay. So this is how I do it. I lay it right on top of it, and I want to get a good look of what is going on. Now, this pink, this is a grunge, and I really kind of like it, but this one works well too. Let's see. Here's a pink right on the end. What do you think looks better? You know, they could both work, but I think I want to go with the grunge. So I'm going to lay the pink grunge down. So I have my pink pulled. Let's go with an aqua next. You know, it's not a perfect match, but it's the only aqua that I have that's going to work. What do you think of that? Can you see how when you lay this aqua next to this fabric, that the aqua in the fabric just kind of jumps out at you? If you take it away, just about everything shows. But if you put this up with it, it pops out a little bit more. So there's an aqua. I really like this kind of mustardy yellow. So let's go over here to my yellows, see what I can find. Dum-de-dum-dum. I don't have anything. This is the closest that I have, and it's got a design in it. But I think the design will be okay. It's not an exact match, but I'm going to go with it because it's what I have. And then let's see, what else do I want to pull? I want a blue. All of my blues are really printy. Oh, I thought this one would work, but it's way too dark. Okay. What do you think of this blue? It's blue, but it's got a little aqua-y in it. Then I have this blue, which is actually in the fabric line, but I think it's too dark. It almost looks like black. Even though, yeah, I'm going to put this one away. But you know what? That's that gold. That gold looks gorgeous. Okay, we might consider that. I still think it's too dark. And I'm going to lay these down so you can all see. And then you can really see this persimmon or orange sticking out. And okay, let me change the camera around so you can see what I'm seeing all together. All right, here is my fabric. The ones that I think I see in this piece. So I'm going to unwrap it and lay it across the top like so. Let's bring this up a little okay. What do you think? Do you see those colors in there? Actually, when I do it this way, I think this gold looks really good. I think my favorite one of all is this pink grunge, because you know what? There's a little bit of navy blue in it. And this blue is okay because it has got some aqua in it. So there's little bits of aqua. See that? And it seems to be pulling from that aqua. Let me replace it though, or put side by side the other blue. What do you think? I think that's just, this looks almost black. Even though I would really love this gold in there, this is just too dark. it doesn't look good. So back on the shelf you go, a dark navy blue. And even though that aqua is, that's kind of cool. So I think this is what I'm going to do for the quilt. I'm going to cut out either 6 or 5-inch squares. Let me figure that out in a minute. And I'm going to have squares of all of these colors and of this. And then I'm going to put a border on it of this. And I think our beginner quilt will be pulled together very nicely. I have another dilemma here that just came up. Look at this aqua. Now it has manatees on it, but it is almost a perfect match to the aqua in these flowers. This one is a little bit brighter, a little more yellowy, but that one is a perfect match. So my question is, do I want manatees in this quilt with all of these flowers or not? They're quite whimsical and they give a different feeling. I'm going to have to think about that one. I love that color of aqua. I just don't want manatees. Here's a, no, see that one is just too, this one doesn't go at all. You can see it's just too green. And everything else I have is just too green. Shoot, howdy. Wonder if I had to pull a, I'm going to go look at my batiks and see if I could pull a batik in there. I went and checked my batiks, and Hazel's mom's here, and look what I found. What do you think? It's not perfect. This one, when you put these two together, this one really shows up lighter, and I think this is going to give the quilt more interest than this plain aqua. But what do you think, Hazel's mom?
I think the color matches better.
Okay.
As opposed to that one.
So Hazel's mom said this. Thank you. She's over there smiling at me. She didn't know I was going to put her on the video. So that is how I pull color. And it's important sometimes to audition colors and to have a second opinion. So here's my quilt. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and then we're going to stitch it up. When you cut your fabric, you can either use the lines on the mat or the lines on your ruler. My mat is aging rapidly, so I am going to use the lines on my ruler, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces at once, or I will get 4 blocks. I've decided to go with a 6-inch block on this quilt. So all I do is line up my ruler on the edge of the fabric, hold it down, and there's 1 row cut. Move these over onto the mat a little bit. And we'll do the second row. Oops, I don't think I, there we go. All right, and then I'm going to subcut them. Subcutting your pieces is, I want that selvage off. The selvage is already off of the orange or the persimmon one. Do you guys know why I call it persimmon and not orange? Because I collect Fiesta ware, and the Fiesta ware is, the orange that I have is called persimmon. Now you know, one of my deep dark secrets. But I do have a happy dishwasher. All right, so I should be able to get 18 6-inch blocks in each color. And I can even get more because I'm going to, let's see, let's hope this is at least 3 inches on the fold. Oh, ta-da, it is. So I will get one more block out of this. Actually, two more blocks and two more blocks out of this. And I'll just press those seams later. All right. Better finger press this down. That's a pretty stiff seam. Okay, and here I go, 18, 20 blocks out of each one. Want it exactly over there. Ta-da! There I go. So I have all of my blocks cut. Let's get to some construction. Before I take it down, look what's on my quilt wall. Do you recognize that from last week? Well, on Saturday, Patricia, or Blue Block, as you guys know her, see how long it is on the floor, came over and helped me put it together because I am doing it for her. And so we finished it. Yay! Some exciting news. The maker of this pattern, Anita Grossman Solomon, emailed me. I was like a little bit starstruck, I have to tell you guys. She let me know that there is a PDF book of Rotary Cutting Revolution, and I've changed it in the description box so it's on there under this quilt. And I'll also send out a notice on my community page so you guys can get that PDF book of Rotary Cutting Revolution, which has this pattern in it. All right? I have my blocks on the design wall. This is the design I'm going to stick with. Now, if you're a new beginning quilter and don't have a design wall, fear not. You can lay them out on your bed or on your floor. Another idea for a design wall, and I used this one for years, was I had one of those vinyl flannel back picnic tablecloths, and I would just tape it to the wall, and the flannel back would hold the blocks just fine. So whatever you use, it's good when you're using this many colors to lay them out. You'll be happier with your end project. Let me tell you what size it's going to be. Now these blocks, remember, because there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance around each one and they're 6 inches square, are going to finish at 5.5 inches square. So my quilt is going to be, with 8 blocks across, 44 inches wide. And with 10 blocks down, it's going to be 55 inches long. After that, I'm going to put a border out of my main fabric, this one that has all of the colors in it. I think it will really add to the quilt, give it some continuity. And again, borders are for, you can do it as a beginner, okay? Borders are not that tough. I'm going to give you some good border tips. But first, let's sew this together. Now, I'm going to sew them together in this order in rows first. And then I'll sew the rows together. Let's get going. I'm going to show you how I take a row of blocks off the wall and take them to my machine. For you beginners, this might be valuable. Some of you have seen it before, but let's take a look at it again. I don't know if you can see the little green pins, but there's a green pin in here and here. There's a set of pink pins in these two, and over here is a set of blue pins. So when you sew a block together, you sew right sides facing right sides, correct? All right. So I'm going to set that up so I can sew it. So I'm going to turn this right side to the right side, and I'm going to hold it in this direction. Now this is the fold where I put them together. And then I'm going to fold it over and do the second set of blocks. And notice I'm keeping those folded lines organized, facing the same direction. And here is the third set of blocks and the fourth set of blocks. So I started this habit as a new quilter, and I still do it, and it saves me so much This side has pins in it. You can feel them and actually see them. This side does not. These are the sides that are folded together. So I'm going to take them to my machine and sew them together. And on this folded side, I always lay it facing my machine. Let's get sewing. Okay, so this is a row that I've taken off, and I have them laid with the side I'm going to sew facing my machine. Remember, I'm sewing on a 1/4 inch seam, so I take these two sides and I match up the blocks like so. And by the way, I have a 1/4 inch foot on, plus I'm using the washi tape. So the washi 1/4 inch tape, so I have a line for 1/4 inch. And I just sew those blocks up like so. Okay, I'm going to open this block up, these two blocks up, and if you notice, there's a blue chick pin in there. I'm going to open this set of blocks up, and there is a green chick pin, and there is a blue block chick pin. So I'm going to put the blue block chick pins together, and I know that my fabric is in the correct position, or my blocks are in the right position, and I'll just sew that with my 1/4 inch seam. Now, when I open it, I still have the green chick pin. Well, here, let me sew these together first. Okay, so this is my pink chick pin, and I always put them in the same position, or the same horizontal position, so the heads match. So there I'm placing my pins together, then pulling them out because I know that's what I'm going to sew, and it will match up. Now, I'm opening this up. It doesn't matter that it's upside down or not, because on this end is still my green pin. And I just find the green pin on these set of blocks, and there it is. And I sew them together, matching the corners. And there you have it, a completed row. How do I know which end is up? Oh, that would be this little piece of tape I put on there and wrote a number 1. And when I mark my rows, because these rows look an awful lot alike, I always mark them, if they're dark, with tape. If it's a light yellow block, I'll just write right on it with a heat erasing pen. So I'm going to take these to the ironing table, and I'm going to press them. Guys, guess what? Guess what I did? I followed my own instructions. And look what I got. Pretty cool, huh? If I can do it, so can you. So, this seam, the seams on this top row are pressed this way, and I just did every other seam, and we are ready to put the border on. Let me tell you how to do a border. Super simple. You're going to love it. All right. It all starts with a tape measure. And you're going to measure in 3 different places: the top, the middle, and the bottom. Why? Because nobody quilts square. Not even me. All right. So it's like 44 3/4, almost 45. 44 1/2. And down here on the bottom, so the top row was a little bit off, almost 3/4 of an inch, or almost 1/4 of an inch off. So this was 45 1/2, and this was 45 1/2. I'm going to make all of them 45 1/2, and I'm going to cut a strip to go here and a strip to go here. But first, I'm going to make the sides. Let me show you what I mean. I hope you're with me. It's really easy, just a little bit of elementary math, and I really only have elementary math. So 1 2 3 4 5 1/2. So that means I'm going to need 6 strips. Now that I have my strips cut, I am going to sew them together on the angle like binding. The reason why I'm doing that is because I really like the diagonal seam. So this is a little big for my tape because I don't have my 1/4 inch tape on my machine down that far. So I'm just going to draw a line, and I'm going to sew these right together like this, on just like I would make a and just like a binding, I'm going to cut off the extra fabric and press these. All right, so here is my huge, big, long binding strip. Here, see, it's on the floor down there. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm not good with moving the camera on the tripod. But let me show you how I measure this. I make it really easy for myself. I need 2 strips of 44 1/2 inch. And I'm going to get my little ruler. Okay, so here is my binding all prepared. And let me show you why I sew it on the bias or the angle, just like a binding. And I press the seams open because it is going to be less bulk in my quilt, and it always looks just a little nicer to me anyway. And this is how I press. I'm going to pick one line, and I'll pick this big bold line up here on top, and I'm going to just measure. I'm going to go measure 44 1/2 inches. Now this is pretty. This is straight on the ends, so it's straight right here. And I'm just going to lay my tape measure, and I do this so technically with my fingers, right? I hold it and I just pull this down until I get to where I want to cut. I'm holding the tape still on the fabric, and this is my line right here. I'm going to slide this ruler under that because I want it to be straight, so, you know, not like this. And I'm going to use these lines, these straight lines on my ruler to line up on the straight of the fabric, slide it over to my measurement, and when I'm happy that I have it square, I'm going to move my tape measure because guess what? I've cut it before, guys. And there's my, oh, dang it, did you see that I slipped my ruler a little bit? There's the first top of my quilt border. I'm going to square this up again. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick this line up right here and just pull it while I'm laying the tape measure down. And I'm going to go to 44 and a half. Pretty slick trick. If you don't have a great big honkin' huge studio like Donna Jordan with her great big tables that I do covet, and you just have a little table like Sister Chick, you know, this works. So I'm holding this tape down. Again, I'm putting it to the right dimension and I'm lining this up. This fabric is lined up square on the board. It's square on the ruler. And then I'm going to whack it off. Okay. So I have my two top pieces and I'm going to pin them and sew them on. Pinning them is the most important thing. So let me show you that because this is a beginner tutorial. So I'm laying my top down and I'm going to lay my border right sides down like so. And then I'm just going to start on the edge. Put a pin in here. I don't know why, but I think it's for stability. I always put a second pin in close to that first one. Then I'm going to come down here and put a pin in on this end, just like I did that one. Look at that. I just lay it down and it's going to fit perfectly. I put a few pins in to secure it, then I take it to my machine and sew it. And I do the same with the other side, which is actually the bottom, right? So let's get this sewn and I'll come back and show you how I do the sides. Well, I have my top and bottom sewed on and I am really liking the way that that print looks. But I am going to measure twice, so I only cut once, and verify my dimensions on the side. I said they were going to be about, let's see, 55 plus 5. So they're going to be about 60 inches, I believe. So that's 30. No, I put down 65 and 5/8. And guess what? 65 and 5/8. Let me check the other side. Okay, so 65 and 3 and 5/8 versus this is 65 and 7/8. So I'm going to cut this binding strip, or this border strip, at 65 and 6/8. Okay, sounds fair to me. That's right in the middle. Same method I used before. Look at that, 4.5 inches left over. Okay, I'm going to sew these on first by pinning them just the way I showed you on the ends, then in the middle, then make sure they fit completely on there and stitch them on, and I'll be back with you. Well, this baby's done. I want to show you a couple of things. the last stitch, I didn't back stitch, by the way, on any of these pieces that I sewed together. You never do in quilting. However, the very last stitch right here where I sewed this on, I back stitched just about 3 stitches and forward. And I'll tell you why. Because that's going to lock this bad boy together, and your long arm quilter will appreciate it. Now, to fold this, press this over, I am just going to flip it over and kind of push it with my iron. Now, I know I told you to press. I am being very light with the iron. However, I am going to press the heck out of this because it's sewn together, and I really want it to look good and to lie flat. I'll even put a little pressing juice on it. And I'm just pressing that seam to the outside or onto the border. I can't wait to get this on the design wall so I can take a good look at it. Gonna be cute. When you go to quilt a quilt, you really want it pressed good. All right? Let's get this on the design wall. Ta-da! So, this quilt is almost 67 inches long. Don't you think it's cute? I love this fabric. It's Art Gallery, and I know I'm going to say the name. I've always said it wrong, by Bard J. Anyway, she's a beautiful designer. I love her stuff. It's a little bold, but what did you guys think of the color lesson where I taught you how to pull colors from one piece of fabric? If you would like some more color lessons, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to do that. I'd love to oblige. Speaking of comments, just this morning, Pat said, I can't decide which of your projects to start with. I just don't know. What would you recommend for a beginner? Well, I would definitely recommend a patchwork. And I hope I gave you enough information to give you the confidence to start your own. I have another video that I'll link below called the Gingham Grid. It's patchwork. There's so many million things you can do with it, and it's super, super simple. And then, oh, I take it back. It was Barbara who wanted to know about the beginner. Pat F, don't be jealous, because I have a secret. Let's just call it an October surprise. And it's going to be for everybody that wants to play. I should have the information within the next 2 videos. So stay tuned for my October surprise, because won't it be a blast? And I hope you learned enough on my colored pen method. Let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I have so much fun hearing your comments and talking with you guys every week and making quilts. So until next week, bye. Oh, next week I'm going to start on some patriotic quilts. I don't have a patriotic quilt in my house. I have a table topper. I sold mine. So anyway, I'm going to make myself a wall hanging patriotic quilt. That's coming up. I'm going to be making a patriotic pillow for my big fluffy 22-inch feather pillow, and just look for fun stuff like that. You should be able to follow along and do the same and have it in time for hopefully Flag Day and the 4th of July. Until then, see you next week. Bye.